Hello, welcome to another great episode of Royal Black and Elite. I'm Lady TrenettWilson, your lecturer and social historian. I want to thank you for joining me for today's lecture. And here on Royal Black and Elite, we not only talk about American Black history, but we also talk about African Black history and current events. And I wanted to bring this brother to you because he is making noise on the continent of Africa and kind of explains some of the tension right now that is between France and Africa as well as America and Africa. So I thought this subject would be really great, a great lecture, and let's jump right into it. Now, in recent weeks, you may have heard, in fact, the nation has actually been shocked to learn about a governmental agency called the USAID. Now, reports reveal that allegedly this organization financed unrest all over the world by financing media, messing with the infrastructure, fomenting coups in the country, fixing elections, and bankrolling insurgents to overthrow leaders who did not align with Western interest. Now, no nation in the world has been affected more by these tactics than Africa. Colonized early on, a lot of the colonizers' influence stayed in the country, and in particular France, who owned a lot of land, who controlled the gold mines, who controlled the oil, who controlled the electricity. And as money left the continent of Africa, the people of the continent stayed poor. But in steps a new leader. He took power through coup, as many of the people in the leaders in Africa do. And but also, often when they do take over in a coup, it doesn't lead to the continent getting better. This time was different. I want to introduce you to Ibrahim Traore. He is the leader of Burkina Faso, and he is the youngest African president in history, only 36 years old. Now, really more of a military man. In fact, he often says he wants to step down because he is more of a military general. This man has come into Africa and switched the whole game. Burkina Faso is a part of the Sahel region, and it includes Mali and Niger. And together they make up this region. And so France has a lot of, or had a lot of sway in that part of the country. Now, the biggest thing, we talked about the gold. I guess that probably was the biggest thing. We talked about the electricity, but the biggest thing was they had a monopoly also on air. So they had a airline called Air France, which together held up France's economy. So basically, Africa was holding up France's economy, and in a lot of the European countries, going in there and stripping the country of its resources because the leaders were corrupt and basically were taking money like from this agency that we just mentioned and others. I'm sure they weren't their only ones who were paying to go into this country and strip it of its beautiful natural resources. Now, these corrupt people allowed them to come in, but Traore came in and he changed it around. He wants to reclaim um, the sovereignty because they weren't sovereign if France owns everything and controls all of their major industries. So he pushed out France's Air France. They were providing poor service anyway, hiking up prices, and would often leave African people stranded in other countries. What they did is then begin to open up and negotiate with other airlines in other countries who could provide the same service. He says allegedly that he wants sovereignty over submission. France has no gold or any critical minerals. They extract it from their colonies. French companies had unfair contracts. They would extract the gold and then they would refine it in France and put France's name on it. Kicking out air carriers has only been the beginning. He has expelled France's troops. pushed him out of the embassy. And one of the most important things is he stopped the extraction of their gold and uranium from their country. Now, Niger also has been the backbone of France's nuclear industry for years. They depend on Niger's uranium heavily to power up their power grid. They account for 70% of their service there in France. 35% of the uranium come from them also. But do you know, as they extract all that resources from Africa, Africa only gets like 5% of what they make from it? Pennies. And that's why they stay in poverty. Now, on July 2023, that's when Traore banned anybody from coming in there and extracting anything. Now they're depending more on domestic energy. He has opened the first hospital, built the first oil refinery, built took over the gold mining materials, and so now they're also doing the gold and extracting it and then exporting it themselves, which is building their economy. Now, Mali is the third largest gold producer. They produce 50 tons of gold each year. So now that France has left, they're doing business with Russia and China firms to export things. So the world is showing that it can be independent, away from all of this terrible stuff that has been what we as a country has been doing. And I know a lot of people are angry, but this nationalism, what Traore is doing, is not too different from what's happening in America right now. So I just thought it interesting. I wanted to bring this story to you, introduce Mr. Traore to you. There is no record of his family as far as who if he's married, if he has children. He's very protective of those things. That he just had a attempt on his life that was discovered. He arrested 3,000 co-conspirators that were here in the country, took away there in the country. That he took away their passports, and they will be tried. So he is not playing with these people. Traore is changing the face of what Africa is and what it looks like. So not only has he brought along Mali and Niger, but now the Ivory Coast, Senegal, and other countries are beginning to look inside of themselves to see what infrastructures they can control and what they can do to take control of their own money. So how will all this play out? I can't really say, but what I do know is that they're on a great path to putting money into the Africans' hands that have been stripped away for far too many years. The people are now working. They're building. They're building in construction. People are now being able to work at refineries. These things were not happening because guess what? Even though France was coming in and taking out their resources, they were using French workers to do it. So they weren't even employing the African people. And we see that here in our country as well. I'm excited to keep my eye on this. Tip of the hat to Mr. Traore. The people love him. And even though he keeps saying, I want to step down, he has not. And he continues to lead his country. Who does he want to lead in instead? He wants it to be a public led, a people led government. However, the last time that happened, insurgents came in and there was a lot of fighting and a lot of unaliving going on. And so that was why the military even had to step in to bring even some order to the country. So, are you from Africa? Do you know about Traore? Have you heard these stories? We as Americans, we say, I hear a lot of black people say this, I'm not for Africa. I don't want to live in Africa. I don't care about Africa. But let me tell you something. When you are from Africa, I don't care if you have black skin and black running through you are from the African diaspora. And so, knowing what Africa is doing to gain its independence, to grab back its resources, and to do what they need to, what they didn't do so many years ago, when slavery happened, and even after that, they are turning into nationalists. They are looking at resource nationalism. that is now driving industry and wealth within their country. So we have to recognize what our brothers and sisters are doing across the seas and acknowledge that they are taking control of their resources. What can we do here as a country, as Black people? We don't have to, they're not even dependent on DEI. They're depending on themselves. So what was the first thing that he did? He got rid of the hucksters, the ones who are lying, the ones who are stealing and getting rich off of telling Black people to follow the wrong advice. So that's the first thing that he did. What else can we take an example of? Number two, he took the resources. I am so excited. Next video, we're going to talk about all of the Black owned brands in America. And I've created a Black luxury guide that you can actually download for free. We also have an option if you want it. But if we're going to discuss royal, Black, and elite, we have to begin with understanding what that means for us. So I know I was kind of militant today. I was excited about this message. However, I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you learned a lot and really opened up your heart to what Africans are doing and how the continent is changing and how we can adopt some of the things that they're doing right here in our own country. I want to thank you for joining me. Don't forget to share this, y'all. Let everyone know. Please share this. Let your friends know. Look what's going on in Africa. They're taking back over their gold. They're taking back over their uranium and their oil and gas. What do we have that we can take back here in America? And I'm not talking about violence and just marching. That gets us nowhere. Naming buildings, thank you, but that gets us nowhere. What does our resources in our country get us as a Black community? I can't wait to go live. We're going to have this discussion as well. I'll keep you posted as to when. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you on another great episode of Royal, Black, and Elite. Don't forget, like, share, and leave some comments down below.